The whir of the coffee machine was the most exciting part of my morning. Same routine, day in, day out. Up at 6:15, shower, burnt toast, because apparently I'm an adult who can't operate a toaster, and out the door by 7:15 to catch the bus to my soul-crushing job at the paper factory. It wasn't always this way. Once upon a time, I had dreams. Dreams of being a writer, of traveling the world, of something more than this. But then came the mortgage, the bills, the comfortable rut that slowly morphed into a suffocating trench. And somewhere along the way, I lost myself. And maybe, just maybe, Sarah had lost herself too. Sarah, my wife. Beautiful, vibrant Sarah, with her infectious laugh and her dazzling smile. The woman I fell head over heels for 10 years ago. The woman who promised to stand by me through thick and thin. The woman who now barely looked at me across the dinner table. It started subtly. A missed goodnight kiss here, a distracted during a conversation there, late nights out with the girls, weekend trips that stretched a little too long. At first I brushed it off. Stress, I told myself. Work, the monotony of life. We all felt it, right? But then came the whispers. The hushed phone calls behind closed doors, the furtive glances at her phone, the quick swipes and deleted messages. The gut feeling that something was off. Denial is a powerful drug. I clung to it like a lifeline, refusing to acknowledge the possibility that Sarah, my Sarah, could be unfaithful. I loved her, I trusted her, didn't I? One evening, as she was catching up with a friend in the other room, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was face down, but the notification flashed across the screen. Mark can't wait to see you again. Soon? Mark? Who the hell was Mark? A colleague? A friend I hadn't met? Or something more? My heart hammered in my chest, a cold dread creeping up my spine. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling. It was locked, of course. But the picture along the text. It was a picture of Sarah, laughing, radiant, with a man I didn't recognize. A man with his arm around her waist, his hand resting possessively on her hip. I dropped the phone as if it were burning, the image seared into my mind. The whispers, the late nights, the weekend trips, it all clicked into place. Sarah was cheating on me, with Mark, whoever the hell he was. The world tilted on its axis. The comfortable rut, the suffocating trench, it all crumbled beneath me, leaving me free falling into a void of despair. I loved her. I still loved her. But how could I love someone who had betrayed me so completely? The coffee machine finished its cycle, the gurgling sound a mocking reminder of the mundane reality I was trapped in. I poured myself a cup, the bitter liquid doing little to soothe the bitterness in my soul. I had to do something. I had to confront her. But what good would that do? Would it change anything? Would it bring back the Sarah I loved? The Sarah I thought I knew? I didn't have the answers. All I had was a broken heart, a shattered trust, and a growing sense of dread. The mundane had turned malicious, and my life, once so predictable, was now teetering on the edge of chaos. The days that followed were a blur of agonizing uncertainty. I functioned on autopilot, going through the motions of my life, the smile I plastered on my face a brittle mask concealing the turmoil within. Sarah continued her charade, the late nights and whispered phone calls becoming more frequent, her indifference towards me more pronounced. Each night, as I lay beside her in our bed, the distance between us felt like a chasm. I yearned to reach out, to touch her, to feel the warmth of her skin against mine. But a wall of ice had formed around my heart, a barrier built of betrayal and hurt. One Saturday morning, Sarah announced she was going on another girls' weekend. She pecked me on the cheek, a perfunctory gesture devoid of any real affection, and breezed out the door, her suitcase trailing behind her. I watched her go, a hollow ache in my chest. The house felt unbearably empty, the silence deafening. I wandered aimlessly from room to room, the familiar surroundings suddenly alien and oppressive. Then I heard it. A faint buzzing sound coming from Sarah's forgotten handbag on the couch. her phone. It was vibrating insistently, the screen flashing with an incoming message. Hesitantly, I reached for the bag, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I shouldn't. It was an invasion of privacy, a betrayal of trust. But the curiosity, the gnawing need to know, was overwhelming. I pulled out the phone, my fingers trembling. The screen was unlocked. A message from Mark filled the display. "Already missing you, babe. This weekend can't go by fast enough. Can't wait to hold you in my arms again. You're everything to me." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Everything to me. Not me, not her husband, the man who loved her, who trusted her, who had built a life with her. No, she was everything to him, to this Mark. I scrolled through the messages, each one a dagger to my heart. They were explicit, passionate, filled with a longing that made my stomach churn. They spoke of stolen moments, secret rendezvous, a love that was forbidden yet all-consuming. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands, the weight of her betrayal crushing me. It was real. It was undeniable. Sarah was having an affair, and it wasn't just a fling, a momentary lapse of judgment. It was a full-blown love affair, a passionate connection that had consumed her, leaving me nothing. I felt a surge of anger, a burning rage that threatened to consume me. How could she do this to me? How could she throw away years of marriage, of love, of shared dreams, for this stranger? But the anger was quickly replaced by a profound sense of powerlessness. What could I do? What could I say? The evidence was there, stark and undeniable. But would it change anything? Would it bring her back? Would it erase the pain, the betrayal, the utter devastation that was tearing me apart? I didn't know. All I knew was that my world had shattered, the pieces scattered like broken glass, reflecting a distorted image of the life I thought I had. The revelation was a cruel awakening, a harsh reminder that love, trust, and loyalty could be as fragile as a whisper in the wind. The silence in the house was suffocating. I sat on the couch, the phone clutched in my hand like a venomous snake, the messages burning into my brain. I waited. For how long, I don't know. Time seemed to have lost all meaning. When Sarah finally waltzed through the door, her cheeks flushed with what I now knew was not just the afterglow of a weekend with friends. I felt a surge of nausea. She looked at me, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "You're home early," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "We need to talk," I said, my voice hoarse. She sighed dramatically, tossing her bag onto the floor. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted." "No, it can't," I said, standing up, the phone clutched in my hand. "I know about Mark." The blood drained from her face. For a moment, she looked genuinely shocked. Then the mask slipped back into place, her expression hardening. "Oh," she said flatly. "So you were snooping through my phone?" "It doesn't matter how I found out," I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. "The fact is, you're cheating on me." "Well, it's not exactly a secret, is it?" she retorted, her voice dripping with disdain. "I haven't exactly been subtle." Her words were like a slap in the face. Not subtle? Was that supposed to be some kind of justification? Was I supposed to be grateful that she hadn't even bothered to try and hide her infidelity? "How could you?" I whispered, the question tearing from my throat. "How could you do this to me? To us?" "Us?" she scoffed. "There is no us, Danny. Not anymore. Not for a long time. What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about this," she said, gesturing around the small, cluttered living room. "This life, this existence. It's suffocating me, Danny. You're suffocating me." "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You never did," she said, her voice cold. "You're content with this mediocrity, this stagnation. You've given up on your dreams, Danny, and you've dragged me down with you." "That's not fair," I protested, feeling a flicker of anger. I work hard. I provide for us. You provide the bare minimum, she sneered. A tiny house, a dead-end job, a life devoid of any passion or excitement. I deserve more, Danny. I deserve to be with someone who wants more, who is more. And that's Mark? I asked, my voice laced with bitterness. Mark understands me, she said, her eyes hardening. He sees my potential, my ambition. He wants to help me achieve my dreams. And what about my dreams? I asked, the question echoing in the empty room. She looked at me, her expression a mixture of pity and contempt. You don't have any dreams anymore, Danny, she said. You gave up on them a long time ago. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Here, she said, tossing it onto the coffee table. Sign these. What are they? I asked, my voice trembling. Divorce papers, she said flatly. I want out, Danny. I'm done. I stared at the envelope, the word divorce printed in bold letters across the front. It felt like a physical blow, a punch to the gut that knocked the wind out of me. You want me to sign these now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You have 2 days, she said, turning away. Don't make this any harder than it has to be. She walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, the divorce papers clutched in my hand, the weight of her words crushing me. My wife, my love, my life. She was gone. And all I had left was a stack of legal documents and a heart shattered into a million pieces. The city lights blurred into a hazy, indistinct smear against the inky black sky. Each passing car was a fleeting streak of red and white, a distant hum in the vast emptiness that had consumed me. I walked, or rather, I drifted, my feet carrying me without any conscious direction. I just needed to move, to escape the suffocating silence of the house, the echoing emptiness of my life. The icy wind whipped at my face, a biting reminder of the coldness that had settled deep within my bones. It mirrored the chill in my heart, the numbness that had replaced the raw, agonizing pain of Sarah's betrayal. I reached the bridge, its iron railings a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the frozen river. Below, the water churned, a dark, swirling mass reflecting the city's distorted lights. It looked cold, unforgiving, a fitting end to a life that had become unbearable. I leaned against the railing, the cold metal biting into my skin, a small, insignificant pain compared to the ache in my soul. The bridge was deserted, save for the occasional car that sped past, its headlights momentarily illuminating the desolate figure standing at the edge. No one noticed me, no one cared. I was invisible, a ghost haunting the fringes of my own life. I stared down at the icy water, its surface rippled and disturbed, a reflection of the turmoil within me. It was so easy, so tempting, to just let go, to slip over the railing, to fall into the darkness, to end the pain, to finally find peace. The thought was both terrifying and alluring. It was a surrender, an admission of defeat, but it was also a release, a way out of the suffocating despair that had consumed me. No more heartache, no more betrayal, no more emptiness. Just nothingness. The wind howled around me, a mournful cry that echoed my own inner turmoil. I closed my eyes, picturing Sarah's face, her smile, her laughter. The memories, once a source of comfort, were now a cruel torment, each one a reminder of what I had lost, what she had stolen from me. A tear escaped, freezing on my cheek before I could wipe it away. I was alone, utterly alone, adrift in a sea of despair with no hope of rescue. The icy water below beckoned, a silent promise of oblivion. I took a step closer to the railing, my hand tightening around the cold metal. The wind pushed against me as if trying to nudge me forward to hasten my descent into the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. I was so close to the edge, just one more step. And then, a voice, a raspy, almost forgotten sound that broke through the fog of my despair. Spare any change for a struggling fella? I opened my eyes, startled by the intrusion. A figure emerged from the shadows, a hunched, ragged silhouette against the backdrop of the city lights. An old man, his face weathered and lined, his clothes threadbare and worn. A homeless man, seeking a meager respite from the biting cold. "Spare any change?" he rasped, his voice a dry, brittle whisper. I looked at him, my mind struggling to process the simple request. Change. What did I need change for? What good was money to a man about to end his life? I reached into my wallet, my fingers brushing against the crisp bills, the remnants of a life that was falling apart. I pulled out all the cash I had, a wad of bills that seemed both insignificant and monumental in that moment. "Here," I said, thrusting the money towards the old man. "Take it. It'll probably be more useful to you than it is to me." The old man looked at me, his eyes surprisingly bright and alert, searching mine. He chuckled, a dry, rattling sound that echoed in the stillness. "Thank you, son," he said, taking the money. "You're a kind soul." He reached into his tattered coat and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper. "Here," he said, offering it to me. "This is for you." I looked at the paper, confused. It was a lottery ticket, its numbers faded and worn. "What's this?" I asked. "A second chance," the old man said, his voice barely a whisper. "Everyone deserves a second chance, son, even you." I stared at him, my mind reeling. A second chance? What did he mean? Was this some kind of cruel joke? The old man smiled, a knowing glint in his eyes. "Don't waste it, son," he said. "Life's full of surprises. You never know what's around the corner." He turned and walked away, his figure fading into the shadows, swallowed by the darkness. I watched him go, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. The lottery ticket felt heavy in my hand, its faded numbers a strange symbol of hope in the midst of despair. A second chance. The words echoed in my mind, a faint whisper against the backdrop of my own tumultuous thoughts. I looked back at the bridge, the icy water churning below. The urge to jump, to end it all, was still there, a nagging voice in the back of my mind. But something had shifted. The encounter with the old man, his cryptic words, the lottery ticket, it had planted a seed of doubt, a flicker of curiosity that was enough to hold me back from the brink. I turned away from the bridge, the lottery ticket clutched in my hand, a strange sense of purpose guiding my steps. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I wasn't ready to give up just yet. The old man's words, his gift, had given me a reason to keep going, a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for a second chance. The lottery ticket sat on my kitchen table, mocking me with its faded numbers and crumpled edges. I stared at it, bleary-eyed, the remnants of a sleepless night clinging to me like a shroud. What a ridiculous thing. A homeless man, a cryptic message, a second chance. It all felt like a fever dream, a bizarre hallucination brought on by stress and despair. I almost threw it away. Almost. But something stopped me. Call it morbid curiosity. Call it a desperate grasp at a fleeting hope. Call it sheer stubbornness. Whatever it was, I couldn't bring myself to discard the old man's gift. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I typed in the lottery website address. I squinted at the screen, the numbers blurring before my eyes. I entered the ticket numbers, one by one, my heart pounding with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. "Please enter a valid ticket number," the website chided. "I did, damn it," I muttered, rubbing my eyes and trying again. This time, the page loaded. A list of winning numbers appeared, followed by a single life-altering sentence. "Congratulations, you are a winner!" I blinked. Once, twice. Then I burst out laughing, a hysterical, disbelieving cackle that echoed through the empty house. This had to be a joke, a cruel, cosmic prank. Me? Winning the lottery? The guy whose life was imploding faster than a dying star? Yeah, right. I checked the numbers again, meticulously comparing them to the ones on the ticket. No mistake. They matched. Every single one. My laughter died in my throat, replaced by a stunned silence. Holy shit, I'd won. I'd actually won the damn lottery. $200 million. 200 million. The numbers swam before my eyes, a dizzying array of zeros that seemed to stretch into infinity. It was an absurd amount of money, a sum so vast that it defied comprehension. What would I even do with it all? I sank into a chair, my head spinning. This was insane. This was life-changing. This was a second chance. The old man's words echoed in my mind, a prophecy fulfilled. A grin spread across my face, a genuine, unadulterated grin that hadn't been there in longer than I could remember. Suddenly, the world seemed a little brighter, the future a little less bleak. The divorce papers, still sitting on the table, seemed a little less daunting. Sarah's betrayal, though still painful, felt a little less devastating. I had 200 million reasons to smile, 200 million reasons to start over, 200 million reasons to tell Sarah to go to hell. I picked up the phone, my fingers no longer trembling. It was time to call a lawyer. It was time to cash in my ticket. It was time to take control of my life. It was time for a second chance. And this time, I wasn't going to waste it. The pen felt heavy in my hand, yet my signature flowed smoothly across the divorce papers. No hesitation, no tremor, just a clean, decisive stroke. It was done. The final severance, the official end of us. And strangely, I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, no lingering ache of betrayal. Just a quiet sense of resolve. Like closing a chapter, a messy, painful chapter, but closed nonetheless. The money hadn't changed me. It hadn't magically erased the hurt or the humiliation, but it had given me something far more valuable. Perspective. Clarity. A sense of control. I wasn't the same Danny who had walked to that bridge, broken and defeated. I was different, stronger, wiser. I folded the divorce papers neatly and placed them in an envelope. It was time for one last visit, one last goodbye. Not to Sarah, but to the version of myself I was leaving behind. I drove to her apartment, the same small, cramped place we had shared for years. It felt foreign now, a relic of a life that no longer existed. I parked the car and walked to the door, my steps measured, my heart calm. Sarah answered the door, a look of surprise on her face. She was dressed in a silk robe, her hair tousled, a faint scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air. Mark's perfume, I presumed. "Danny?" she said, her voice laced with a mixture of surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing here?" "I brought you something," I said, my voice flat, devoid of any emotion. I held out the envelope. She took it, her brow furrowed. "What is it?" "The divorce papers," I said. "Signed?" Her eyes widened. She opened the envelope, her gaze scanning the pages. A slow smile spread across her face. "You signed them," she said, her voice laced with triumph. "Finally." "Yes," I said, "I did. And I want you to know something, Sarah. I want you to know that I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I'm indifferent. You see, Sarah, you didn't just betray me. You betrayed yourself. You traded real love, real commitment for this." I gestured dismissively at her robe, at the apartment, at the life she was trying to build on lies and deceit. "You think you're so smart," I continued, my voice low and steady. "You think you've won, but you haven't. You've lost. You've lost me. You've lost your integrity, and you've lost any chance of real happiness. And you'll regret it, Sarah. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. So you better not come back running to me." I turned to leave, without another word, without another glance. I didn't need to see her reaction. I didn't care. I was done. Completely, irrevocably done. I walked back to my car, the weight of the past finally lifted from my shoulders. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free, truly free. Okay, so cashing in a $200 million lottery ticket is weird, Like, really weird. There were lawyers and forms and a whole lot of serious-looking people in suits. I half expected someone to jump out and yell, "Surprise, you're on candid camera." But no, it was real. My life had officially been flipped, turned upside down. The first thing I did after the initial shock wore off was book a flight. Not just any flight, a flight to everywhere. Or at least a good chunk of it. I'd always dreamed of traveling, of seeing the world, but, paper factory wages don't exactly fund globetrotting adventures. Now, different story. 2 weeks. That's what I gave myself. 2 weeks of pure, unadulterated freedom. No deadlines, no bosses, no Sarah-shaped holes in my heart. Just me, my backpack, and a whole lot of cash burning a hole in my pocket. First stop, Rome. Because, well, who doesn't want to see the Colosseum? It was everything I imagined and more. The sheer scale of the place was mind-blowing. I wandered around, soaking it all in, picturing gladiators battling, crowds roaring. I ate pasta that made my taste buds sing, drank wine that tasted like sunshine, and even managed to charm a cute little gelato vendor into giving me an extra scoop. Hey, I'm a millionaire now, I can be a little cheeky. Then it was on to Barcelona. Gaudi's architecture is trippy. Seriously, the Sagrada Familia is like something out of a dream, all swirling shapes and vibrant colors. I spent hours just wandering around, gawking at everything. I even tried some tapas, which, let's just say, some of those little snacks are an acquired taste. But hey, I tried them. That was the point, right? Trying new things, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Next up, Tokyo. The sheer energy of the place was insane. Neon lights, bustling crowds, karaoke blasting from every other doorway. I ate sushi that was so fresh it practically swam onto my plate, visited ancient temples, and got completely lost in the maze of Shibuya Crossing. It's as chaotic as it looks in the videos. I even tried to learn a few Japanese phrases, which, let's just say, didn't go particularly well. But again, I tried. And finally, to Thailand. Beautiful beaches, crystal clear water, massages that made me feel like a new man. I learned to scuba dive. Turns out I'm not a huge fan of enclosed spaces underwater, but I did it. Explored ancient ruins, and even got to hang out with some elephants. They're surprisingly cuddly. The food was incredible, spicy and flavorful, and the people were so friendly and welcoming. It was exactly what I needed. A chance to relax, to unwind, to let go of all the stress and negativity that had been weighing me down. These 2 weeks weren't just a vacation. They were a reboot. A chance to rediscover myself, to figure out who I was now, that I wasn't just Sarah's husband or that guy from the paper factory. I was Danny, just Danny, and I was free. I started to feel lighter. The weight on my chest, the constant knot in my stomach, it started to loosen. I laughed more, I smiled more, I even started to feel confident. Not cocky, just comfortable in my own skin. I wasn't the same Danny who had walked to that bridge. I was stronger, more self-assured, ready to face whatever the future held. The world was still a little scary, sure, but now I knew I could handle it. I had 200 million reasons to believe in myself. And honestly, that was more than enough. Coming back home was weird, like stepping into a time capsule. My tiny house, with its peeling paint and overgrown lawn, looked even smaller and shabbier than I remembered. It was like a physical representation of the life I'd left behind, cramped, suffocating, and in dire need of a makeover. But this time, I had the means for a serious upgrade. Mansion was the first word that popped into my head when I saw the for sale sign on that sprawling estate overlooking the lake. It was ridiculous, extravagant, the kind of place I used to dream about while staring out the window at the paper factory. Now, it was within reach, more than within reach. It was mine for the taking. Walking through those grand oak doors was like stepping into another world. High ceilings, marble floors, a chandelier that probably cost more than my old house. There was a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Finally, a place for all those books I always wanted. A home theater that could rival a multiplex, and a kitchen that made my old one look like a broom closet. Hell, there was even a freaking indoor pool. An indoor pool. Who needs that? Apparently I do. But the mansion wasn't just about fancy amenities. It was about space. Space to breathe, space to think, space to become. It was a symbol of my new life, a blank canvas on which I could paint my future. Of course, managing a fortune like mine wasn't exactly something they taught you at the paper factory. So I did the sensible thing. I hired a financial advisor. A real one, not some guy in a cheap suit who promises to triple your investment in a week. This guy, Mr. Henderson, was the real deal. He talked about things like diversified portfolios and long-term growth strategies. And while I didn't understand half of it, I trusted him. He seemed to know what he was doing, and that was good enough for me. With Mr. Henderson handling the money stuff, I could focus on the fun part, figuring out what the hell I wanted to do with my life. The old dreams, the ones I'd buried under years of routine and disappointment, started to resurface. Writing, traveling, maybe even opening my own restaurant. Hey, a guy can dream, right? I enrolled in a creative writing class at the local community college. It was interesting. Turns out, writing a compelling short story is a lot harder than it looks. But I enjoyed it. It was a challenge, a way to flex my creative muscles, to express myself in a way I hadn't been able to before. I also started traveling again, but this time it was different. It wasn't about escaping. It was about exploring, about learning, about experiencing the world with a newfound appreciation. I visited museums, art galleries, historical sites. I tried new foods, learned new languages, and met people from all walks of life. It was exhilarating, eye-opening, and surprisingly humbling. But the biggest change was internal. I started taking care of myself. I joined a gym, got a personal trainer, who, by the way, was way too enthusiastic about burpees, and actually started eating healthy. Turns out kale isn't that bad when you know how to cook it. I even got a new wardrobe, ditching the faded jeans and worn-out t-shirts for something a little more stylish. It wasn't about vanity. It was about self-respect, about valuing myself, about investing in myself. For years, I'd let myself go, both physically and emotionally. Now I was reclaiming myself, rebuilding myself, brick by brick. The contrast between my old life and my new reality was stark. It was like night and day, but it wasn't just about the money, the mansion, the fancy clothes. It was about the mindset, the shift in perspective, the realization that I was in control of my own destiny, that I could be whoever I wanted to be, do whatever I wanted to do, that I could finally, truly live my life to the fullest. And that, more than anything else, was the greatest gift of all. News travels fast in a small town, especially news about a $200 million lottery win. It seemed like everyone, from my old buddies at the paper factory to Mrs. Henderson, the nosy neighbor who always watered her petunias in her bathrobe, knew about my sudden fortune. The reactions were a mixed bag. Some were genuinely happy for me. Like Mike, my best friend since high school, who practically tackled me with a bear hug when he saw me at the local diner. "Danny, you lucky bastard," he'd roared, clapping me on the back hard enough to make me spill my coffee. 200 million. Man, you could buy this whole town and still have enough left over for a lifetime supply of donuts. Yeah. Others were less enthusiastic. There was a lot of awkward back-patting, forced smiles, and thinly veiled envy. Some of the guys at the factory, the ones who used to joke about winning the lottery and quitting their jobs in spectacular fashion, now eyed me with a mixture of resentment and suspicion, like I'd somehow cheated them out of their own imaginary fortune. Then there were the long-lost friends and distant relatives who suddenly crawled out of the woodwork, their hands outstretched, their eyes gleaming with dollar signs. I got phone calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years, each one with a sob story and a business opportunity that was guaranteed to make me even richer. It was exhausting. Even Mrs. Henderson, the bathrobe-clad gardener, started treating me differently. She'd always been friendly, in a gossipy, overbearing kind of way, but now she was practically fawning over me, offering me freshly baked pies and unsolicited advice on landscaping. It was kind of creepy, actually. The weirdest part was how people started treating me like I was different. Like I'd suddenly become some kind of celebrity or a rare exotic bird. People would stare at me in the grocery store, whisper behind my back at the coffee shop, and ask for my autograph at the gas station. Seriously, who asked for an autograph at a gas station? It was like I'd become an exhibit in a zoo, a curiosity to be gawked at and analyzed. I get it, though. $200 million is a lot of money. It's the kind of money that changes lives, that opens doors, that makes people do crazy things. And I guess, in a way, it had changed me. I was more confident, more self-assured, more aware of my own potential. But I was still Danny. Just Danny. The same guy who liked cheesy action movies, pepperoni pizza, and long walks in the woods. The money hadn't changed who I was, but it had changed how people saw me. And that, I realized, was something I had to get used to. It was a new kind of challenge, a new kind of obstacle to overcome. But hey, after everything I'd been through, a little social awkwardness was nothing. I had a mansion to decorate, a world to explore, and a whole lot of living to do. And I wasn't going to let a few envious glances or unsolicited pie offers get in my way. The intercom buzzed, a jarring interruption to my afternoon of contemplating which infinity pool design best complemented the Tuscan-inspired landscaping. I pressed the button, a flicker of annoyance crossing my face. Yes? Danny, it's Sarah. My blood ran cold. Sarah, here. At my mansion? What the hell was she doing here? Sarah? I said, my voice a mixture of disbelief and apprehension. What do you want? Can I come in? We need to talk. I hesitated. Talk? About what? There was nothing left to say. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. But a morbid curiosity gnawed at me. What kind of game was she playing now? Fine, I said, pressing the button to unlock the gate. Come on up. I watched from the balcony as her car, a sleek little sports car that was definitely new, pulled up the driveway. She stepped out, looking different. Gone were the designer jeans and trendy blouses. She was dressed in a simple sundress, her hair loose around her shoulders, a soft, vulnerable expression on her face. It was a calculated transformation, a carefully crafted facade designed to appeal to my what? My sympathy? My guilt? She looked up and saw me, a tentative smile gracing her lips. Danny, she said, her voice soft and sweet, the same voice that used to make my heart melt. It's so good to see you. She walked towards me, her arms outstretched. I instinctively stepped back, a wave of revulsion washing over me. Don't, I said, my voice cold. Don't even try that. Her smile faltered. Danny, please, she said, her eyes welling up with tears. I know I messed up. I made a mistake, but I'm sorry. I truly am. Sorry? I scoffed. Sorry you got caught. You mean… No, she said, her voice trembling. I'm sorry I hurt you. I never meant to. I was selfish. I was blinded by my own ambition, my own desires. I didn't appreciate what we had, what you gave me. And what's changed now? I asked, my voice laced with skepticism. Why the sudden change of heart? I heard about the lottery, she admitted, her gaze dropping to the floor. Ah, I said, the pieces clicking into place. So that's it. You're here for the money. No, she protested, her eyes widening in feigned innocence. That's not true. I'm here because I miss you. I miss us. I realize now that I made a terrible mistake. I threw away the best thing in my life for nothing. She reached out and touched my arm, her touch sending a shiver down my spine. Danny, please, she pleaded. Give me another chance. Let's start over. We can have everything we ever dreamed of. A beautiful house, a family, a life filled with love and happiness. I looked at her, my heart hardening. It was a masterful performance, a carefully orchestrated manipulation designed to exploit my vulnerabilities. But I wasn't the same naive fool she'd walked all over before. I'd learned my lesson. I'd seen her true colors. and I wasn't falling for her lies again. "It's too late, Sarah," I said, my voice firm. "You made your choice. You chose Mark. You chose ambition over love, excitement over stability, and now you have to live with the consequences." "But Danny—" "No," I interrupted, my voice rising. "I'm done. I'm done with your lies, your manipulations, your selfish games. You broke my heart, Sarah. You shattered my trust, and I'm not going to let you do it again." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and anger. "You're being ridiculous," she said, her voice hardening. "You're throwing away a fortune, a chance at happiness, because of some misplaced pride." "Pride?" I scoffed. "No, Sarah, this isn't about pride. It's about self-respect. It's about knowing my worth. And I'm worth more than being someone's second choice, someone's fallback plan." I turned away from her, my gaze sweeping across the sprawling grounds of my mansion, the symbol of my newfound freedom and independence. "This is my life now, Sarah," I said. "And you're not a part of it. Not anymore." Sarah's carefully constructed mask of vulnerability began to crack. The soft, pleading tone vanished, replaced by a sharper, more accusatory edge. "You think you're so much better than me now, don't you?" She spat, her eyes blazing with resentment. "Just because you have some money." "It's not about the money, Sarah," I said, my voice calm but firm. "It's about the principle. You walked out on me, remember? You chose him. You said I was suffocating you, that I was holding you back." "I was wrong," she retorted, her voice laced with a desperate urgency. "I didn't mean it. I was just confused, frustrated. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone." "Oh, really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "And what about Mark, the man who understood you, who saw your potential? What happened to him?" A flicker of panic crossed her face. Mark is gone," she stammered. He left. He wasn't who I thought he was." "So now that your grand adventure has fizzled out, you come crawling back to me," I said, my voice dripping with disdain. "Hoping to cash in on my good fortune?" "That's not fair, Danny," she protested, her voice cracking. "I admit I made mistakes, but I love you. I've always loved you." "Love?" I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "You have a funny way of showing it, Sarah. Cheating on me, leaving me for another man, and then showing up at my doorstep expecting a handout? That's not love. That's opportunism. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she pleaded, her eyes welling up with tears. "But please, Danny, give me another chance. We can make this work. We can be happy again." "Happy?" I said, my voice rising. "How can we be happy when the foundation of our relationship was built on lies and betrayal? You shattered my trust, Sarah. You ripped my heart out and stomped on it. And you expect me to just forget about it, pretend it never happened?" "People make mistakes, Danny," she said, her voice trembling. "We can learn from them. We can grow stronger." "We?" I scoffed. "There is no we, Sarah. There hasn't been for a long time. You made that abundantly clear when you walked out that door." "But Danny, the money—" "The money is mine, Sarah," I interrupted, my voice firm. "I earned it, not you, not Mark, me, and I'm not sharing it with someone who only wants me for what I can give them." "But we were married," she exclaimed, her voice rising in indignation. "Don't I deserve something? Half of everything?" "You're entitled to half of what we had when we were married," I said, my voice laced with a hint of amusement. Which, let's be honest, wasn't much. A small house, a mountain of debt, and a whole lot of resentment. "Enjoy your half, Sarah. I'm sure you can find some good use for it." She stared at me, her face contorted with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You're being cruel," she spat. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? You're getting some kind of sick pleasure out of watching me suffer." "Suffer?" I laughed. "No, Sarah, I'm not enjoying your suffering. I'm indifferent to it. You made your bed, now lie in it. I'm simply moving on with my life, a life that thankfully no longer includes you." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, silencing her. "I'm done, Sarah," I said, my voice flat. "There's nothing left to say. You had your chance and you blew it. Now please leave." Sarah paused at the edge of the marble foyer, her back rigid, her hands clenched into fists. She turned, her face a mask of fury. "You think you've won, don't you?" she hissed, her voice laced with venom. "But you haven't seen the last of me, Danny. I'll get what I deserve. You can't keep me away from what's rightfully mine." A wave of amusement washed over me. "And what, pray tell, is rightfully yours, Sarah?" I asked, leaning against the grand staircase, arms crossed, a smirk playing on my lips. "Half of everything," she spat. "We were married. The law's on my side." I chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that echoed through the cavernous space. "Ah, Sarah," I said, shaking my head. "You seem to be laboring under a misconception. You see, there's a rather crucial detail you seem to have overlooked." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "Timing, my dear," I said, my voice laced with a hint of mockery. "The timing of certain events." "I don't understand," she said, her voice faltering. "Let me enlighten you," I said, stepping closer. "The divorce, Sarah, it was finalized, officially, legally finalized, 2 days ago before I cashed in the winning ticket." The blood drained from her face, her eyes widening in horror. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "That's not possible." "Oh, but it is," I said, enjoying the shock and disbelief on her face. "You see, Sarah, I had a very good lawyer. A lawyer who made sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted. A lawyer who ensured that your claim to my fortune ended the moment that divorce decree was signed." She stumbled back as if I'd physically struck her. You planned this," she stammered, her voice filled with accusation. "I adapted," I corrected, a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. "I learned from my mistakes. I learned that trusting someone like you is a recipe for disaster. So, I protected myself. I made sure that your greed, your treachery, wouldn't be rewarded." "You're a monster," she hissed, her eyes blazing with hatred. "No, Sarah," I said, my voice low and steady. "I'm not a monster. I'm just a man who finally learned to stand up for himself. A man who finally realized his own worth. And I'm worth more than being used, abused, and discarded like trash." The word hung in the air, heavy and resonant. Sarah flinched, her eyes dropping to the floor. "Danny, please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't do this. Don't throw away everything we had." "We had nothing, Sarah," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. "You made sure of that. You traded our love, our commitment for a fleeting affair, a shallow ambition. You chose to be trash, Sarah, and I don't have any room for trash in my new life." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and regret. But it was too late. The damage was done. The trust was broken. The love was gone. "Goodbye, Sarah," I said, turning away. "I wish you nothing. May your life be as empty and meaningless as you made mine." I walked away, leaving her standing there, a solitary figure in the vast emptiness of my mansion. I didn't look back. There was no need. I had said my piece. I had closed the chapter. I had finally, truly, said goodbye. As I walked towards my new life, a life filled with possibilities and promise, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known before. The pain of betrayal was still there, a dull ache in the background, but it no longer defined me. I was free. Free from the shackles of a toxic relationship, free from the weight of the past, free to create a future that was truly my own. And as I stepped out into the sunshine, a new chapter unfolding before me, I knew that I had finally found my happy ending. Not the one I had envisioned, perhaps, but the one I deserved. A happy ending built on self-respect, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of a second chance.